Okay, welcome back from the hallway, bathroom, or wherever you were. My name is Eric Jones. I am the Assistant Regional Engineer in the Utah Lake Jordan River office. I work under Ross Hansen, who's over there, looking very judicial. I'm going to make some jokes during my presentation, and 90% of them aren't going to generate a laugh, but that's okay. Paul, we can do post-production, right, with the laugh track? Okay. And also I've made some assumptions about you. I assume that you understand everything that Teresa said because there weren't a lot of questions at the end of her presentation. So, but if I do say a term or use some verbiage that doesn't fly in your mind, just raise your hand and hopefully we can rectify it, okay? And I did say I'm an engineer. And so about a year ago, we were at a family dinner and my brother said to me, he said, "What are your top 10 favorite movies?" Okay, Dan and Sue and Lant had heard this. It's a little different than last time, but so I'm keeping you on your toes, okay? So I told them my top 10 favorite movies, and then after I related that the last time I gave a presentation, I told the people my favorite movies. My brother said, "You can't tell people your favorite movies because your favorite movies are terrible." So I'm not going to tell you my favorite movies, but as an engineer, I made a database of my family's favorite movies because that's what engineers do, because we're weird. So in that database, I compiled and I found the most frequently mentioned movies, okay? And I would like to have you offer up some suggestions of what the top 3 are in that database, okay?
Star Wars.
Okay, Star Wars is number 1, okay? Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope is number 1. Okay, let's clarify. It's not all of them, okay? In fact, some people in our family don't even recognize episodes 1 through 3, okay? Okay, Goonies is number 3, okay? So we're looking for number 2. Forrest Gump isn't even on the list. That's amazing, because that's a fine movie, but here's what I actually wanted you guys to think. I appreciate that you yelled out answers and you got 2 of the 3, but what I wanted you to think is I want you to think, I need more information. Okay, so who would like more information about my family? Because this might help you determine the third movie, which actually is number 2 on the list, but the third movie.
Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones is a good guess, and I believe Raiders of the Ark is in the database, but Raiders of the Lost Ark is in the database, but not. Anyway, don't get me started on Indiana Jones. Okay, it is a trilogy in my mind. There is no 4th movie in Indiana Jones. Okay, would you like more information about my family? Okay. Okay, ages, perfect. Just me and my siblings. So there are 4. We are 4. We're all married. So there are 10 people that did this in the database. Both our parents, both of my parents. They're not your parents. To fill out the database. Okay, so my oldest brother was born in 1976, and I was born in 1983. That's our age range. Okay, I don't know if that helped at all. We are all white. I don't know if that helps at all. It is an equal number of male and female, 5 male, 5 female. And I will say that Ferris Bueller's Day Off is in the database, but is not number 2. Okay. Here's another thing. I'm an engineer. My father's an engineer. My brothers both dropped out of engineering school. Back to the Future. Okay. Okay. So it goes Star Wars, Back to the Future, and it's Back to the Future 1. Okay, don't get me started on 2 and 3, even though I think they're good. But number 1 should be a standalone movie, and 2 and 3 should be something completely different. Anyway, and then the Goonies. Okay, so that is germane to my presentation because when Teresa asked me to do my presentation on this topic, my first response was, is my handout going to be blankets and pillows? Because there's no way to really package what she wanted me to do in an entertaining fashion. So what I've done is I've taken those 3 movies and found some images and I've put them on my slides. And I went through and just randomly put them on my slides. And then when I went back and reviewed my presentation, I said, man, these images correspond with what's on the slides pretty well, okay? So come with me on this journey as we look for those pictures. Okay, so here's the overview. So the pictures are the main focus of my presentation. This other stuff is auxiliary, and I have the rule listed on my, I'm going to stop one more time. I'm going to apologize because my slides do not fit standard PowerPoint presentation ideas where, limit number of words on your slide. I have lots of words on lots of my slides. The idea was to give you excerpts of the rule that we're discussing that you can take home with you, so you don't have to have a 3-ring binder with the rule printed out in it that you read to put yourself to sleep at night. Okay, but the rule is a good rule, and it does provide some good things. Okay, so that's the overview. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Okay, so a declaration of beneficial use is something that allows a water user or water right holder to declare how much beneficial use amount is in each group. Okay, and we refer to them as DOBUs or DOBUs or anything other than saying Declaration of Beneficial Use Amount form. You can just call them declarations if you'd like. I refer to them as DOBUs throughout this presentation, okay? And the beneficial use is the measure and limit of all water rights. Okay, rules. So here we have our first picture of Star Wars, A New Hope. So when this rule came out, it provided a new hope to water users to rectify and clarify their water rights. Okay, so that's the rule that guides. Okay, if you want to pull it up on your device, you can follow along. I'm going to go kind of step through the main bullet points of the rule. It was enacted on April 7th, 2010. Okay, so the authority was given to the state engineer to do this under these two sections of the Utah Code. Basically, the state engineer is responsible for all water rights and the information pertaining to the water rights, the administrative supervision, and then the state engineer can also make rules to help him with that process. Okay, so justification and purposes. We are not the empire. Okay, the water rights, Division of Water Rights is not the empire. We do not want to dictate what you do with your water right. We want solely to be the supervisors of the administration of your water rights. It is up to you as the water right holders to tell us how you want that water right to be manipulated, I guess is a word I can use, okay? Like I said, I'm gonna go through these pretty quick, okay? Because there are slides that I don't want to read the bullets. The bullets are there for you to read after the fact. Okay, so Teresa did a wonderful job talking about water use groups. And so we apply this rule when there is a water use group that has one or more water right. So you need one or more water right to have a water use group. And in that water use group, it is unevaluated. There are unevaluated uses. So if there's a record on this with the state engineer's office that's unevaluated, this declaration of beneficial use rule comes into play. All right, so that's all I'm going to recite from the rule. I do have some of the rule, I guess, in some of my other slides. But let's go into basics. Now, I say this is basics, but this is probably more, not quite graduate level water rights information. It's, it's like your senior year of college classes that you're taking, okay? Okay, so a DOBU is prepared by the water right holder themselves. We do not prepare them for you. We can give you suggestions if you call in and ask us questions. But ultimately, it is the water right holder that says, we would like this amount put here, this amount put there. And then our office, basically, we just review it. And we make sure that it's consistent with the files, okay? And this form, you can use our form. And Jim Reese, on his presentation, is going to show you how to generate those forms. Or you can use your own form, okay? But whatever form you use must be signed by all water right holders within that water use group. And on our form, there's also on the very bottom, you have to initial each page. Okay, I have sent back several declarations of beneficial use forms that didn't have initials on the bottom of the page. Okay, so if it's not signed and initialed on our form, then we can't process it. It has to be completely filled out. And then we would appreciate it if you include documentation. Some people just say the documents are on your files. You can review it yourself. And that's okay in most instances. Okay, so on that form, the parties must agree to the beneficial use amounts that are written out. So like some of the examples Teresa showed, and I have some examples coming up. If we have 3 water rights for 10 ELUs, you have to divide 10 ELUs by 3, but it also has to be consistent with the underlying water rights. Okay, it'll come clear once I do some examples. And then on that form, it says it on the top of ours, but on the form, if you submit your own, you must acknowledge that this is not a general adjudication of the water rights. This is just an administrative action to declare a beneficial use amount so that you can proceed doing something else with your water right. Okay, so here's our first practice, okay? So let's attack the problem. This is actually an image from Battlefront. I don't know if anyone plays Battlefront, but I thought it kind of looked like Hoth in The Empire Strikes Back, which is not from A New Hope, but still a great movie. Okay, so read through that slide and let me know what you think. You can cheat and just read the next slide in your thing if you want some more information. But who has some ideas? How can we apportion these 3 water rights? Van, what do you think? Give me an idea.
You could divide each of them equally on all of these uses, the 3 equivalent domestic units, one in each, right?
Right, you could do that.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else want to offer up an idea? Paul?
Basically, you can divide it up however you want. You just have to make sure that it matches the flow of each one of those water rights.
Okay, make sure it's consistent with the underlying water rights. Okay, let's go to the next slide. I'll give you some more information, and let's see if you have a different thought. Okay, read through that. Anyone have some ideas? Yes, Ted.
Wouldn't you use 57-2 because of the priority? That way you assign all the you sign the whole use group just to 57-2 or what you can for the max because it has the highest this is the most senior water right.
Yep.
And then you go to the next most senior right, and then you apply what's remaining.
Yep, I think that's a good idea. Okay, so how would we divide this up? What would 57-1 have in its beneficial use amount for this use group? Would we maximize that, I guess? Yes, Jeff.
To maximize it, you do the 1 acre and the 5 ELUs because that's what it was on the diligence claim.
On the diligence claim, right. And then on 57-1, the certificated right, what would we give to that? What about John Mann over there?
I wouldn't give it anything.
No? Okay. Where would you put the remainder of the use? So we have the 1 acre and the 5 ELUs with the diligence claim.
I put it under 57-3.
57, and why would you put it on a 57-3? Just to let you know, I spend about 6 hours of every workday because John just wants to be a pain. Is that what we're going with? Well, you're crushing it. Okay. All right, anybody that doesn't want to be a pain, what should 57-1 have on it as its beneficial use amount? Jeff?
3 EDUs and 5 ELUs.
Okay.
That's on the certificate.
Okay, so we got the 3 EDUs taken care of. Now we're up to 10 ELUs and 1 acre. So then we assume that the remainder goes to 57-3 for 1 acre and another 5 ELUs. Okay, now these were just signed water users claims, and I see this a lot in my area because there are lots of adjudications that initiated, took lots of claims, but weren't published. So I think that's the best way. You want to make sure that you're assigning the beneficial use amounts to water rights that have some perfecting document. Okay? All right, so as the Office of the State Engineer, oftentimes we find ourselves to be like Leia and Luke and Chewie and Han, you know, in the garbage, sifting through what has been submitted to us. No, I'm not pointing to anybody. So sometimes we require additional documentation to help us understand what you submitted to us, okay? All right, and this one is just a cool picture. Who can answer this question for me? Anybody have any ideas when these need to be filed? Okay, Jeff. And that letter wasn't anonymous. Teresa had talked to me about it. It was signed by me. It was just scanned weirdly. I did sign it. Okay, yes, Claudia.
When you're filing a change application.
Okay, when there's a change application that needs to be filed. Any other times? Scott?
Segregation,
When you want to file a segregation. Okay, any other times?
buying or selling a right,
Buying or selling a right. Okay, that's a good time. I'm looking for one P word. Yes, Paul.
Whenever when there's an unevaluated use.
When there's an unevaluated use and you want to define it,
you're filing proof.
you're filing proof. Thank you. Okay. So here we have Princess Leia putting the plans to the Death Star inside R2-D2, and she's saying, she's recording a message, and the message we get to hear is, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope." Sometimes I feel like I'm Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I'm the only hope of people out in the... No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, our office is here to help. Okay, so you are Princess Leia, you're the water right holder in this scenario, and we are Obi-Wan Kenobi. We are offering our help to help you define your water rights. Okay, so this is in the rule, and I combined, so when it talks about change application in the rule, and when it talks about filing proof, it lists some of the same bulleted items, and I try to combine them as best I could into the next couple slides. Basically, the summary of these slides is, if you want to do some sort of administrative process like a change application, file proof, a segregation, buying and selling the water right, and there's some unevaluated portion, or you don't want to do it on all the water rights in a group, just one, or we are reviewing your change application, and even though all the water rights are in one group, but we can't define it based on the documentation, we will request you to do a DOBU, and that's what the scenario with Jeff a couple weeks ago happened. So anyway, so you can read through those on your own time to get the clarification. But basically, it's when you want to do a process and there's unevaluated uses, you should prepare a declaration of beneficial use to declare what you want as the beneficial use amounts. Okay? Like I said, you can read through those on your own. Okay, so here's the next random question. Anybody want to venture a guess on the answer? No, you don't want to venture a guess, or is that your answer?
That's my answer.
Oh, okay. The answer is no. Okay, like this picture here, we couldn't take this picture and say that this is a poster for The Empire Strikes Back, okay? Because General Tarkin's in there. And we all know General Tarkin died on the Death Star in A New Hope. Okay, so like that, if you have multiple water use groups, you need multiple DOBU forms submitted. Okay, so our evaluation, it comes in, our staff looks at it. The first thing we check is make sure it's signed, make sure it's initialed, because that way we can send it right back out and have that taken care of. The next thing we check, if it's signed, if it's initialed, then we start looking at the water right files to which that declaration pertains. And we make sure that it's consistent with the information on the records of the state engineer. If there's some inconsistencies, I wrote there that it will be returned because that's what's in the rule. But oftentimes what we'll do is we'll contact the person that submitted the declaration and we'll say, here, we've got this inconsistency. Here's my suggestion, or here's our suggestion of how to work it out, or you can come up with your own solution, but here's the limits of these underlying water rights, and you've exceeded this one or this one, and so that can't be. Okay, and then if it is consistent with state engineer's records, we update our database and we write a memo pertaining to that declaration and explaining the underlying water rights and how it is consistent, or sometimes if it's so straightforward, we'll just say this is consistent with our files, and then we updated the database. Okay, so here's the next random DOBU question, and we're into Back to the Future pictures, okay? There's not as many Back to the Future pictures, but... Oh, I also forgot to say at the beginning that my presentation is actually going to be PG rated, and it's because of this one slide, okay? Because as we all know in this scene, this was this was right after the DeLorean first time travels with Einstein, the dog, and he sends him 1 minute into the future. But before he did that, he says, if my calculations are correct, when this car hits 88 miles per hour, you're going to see some serious... Okay? Sometimes that's what I feel like, okay? But anyway, anybody want to answer this question? Yes, Claudia.
So the last question that we had in the quiz addressed this, correct?
Yes, it did. And I saw that question, but I just making sure everyone was awake and everyone got it right last time, but sometimes when you take tests, the teacher asks the question twice. Okay, so then we talked about that in the last presentation. So basically you have to submit it in writing, and then you have to give us a suggestion on how you think the database should look now or based on the documentation, and then we'll review it, and if we like it or if it's consistent with the records, then we'll update and make the corrections. Okay, so database corrections. The state engineer, or I don't know how many database corrections the state engineer has actually made throughout his whole career, but he does delegate the database corrections to his staff and does a good job of it. And we can, as a staff, make corrections to the database at any time to resolve errors. Okay, so here we are again, Back to the Future and Doc Brown. Does anyone remember what's going on in this scene? Are we in, what time frame are we in this one? 1985 or 1955? 1955, okay. And Marty McFly found Doc Brown's house. He comes to him, and what's the contraption that Doc Brown's trying to use there?
Flux capacitor.
No, that's not the flux capacitor. But he's trying to read his mind, right? And he's saying all these different things about Marty McFly, and Marty McFly just keeps saying, no, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong. And then Doc Brown takes it off and he says, do you know what this means? I mean, this doesn't work. That's what. And I'm not saying our database doesn't work, because it does work. But there are lots of errors, and we're constantly resolving the errors, okay? So just last week, I was reviewing a change application. And this change application was based on 2 water rights, okay? The water right number 1 was certificated in 1979 for irrigation ELUs and EDU, and it wasn't listed as supplemental on the certificate. 2 years later, water right number 2 was certificated for irrigation and ELU supplemental with water right number 1. How many water use groups should we have? I know the answer is on there now, but how many water use groups should we have? 1 or 2? 2, okay. Yep, there should be 2 use groups. There should be one for the ELUs and the irrigation, and there should be another one for the irrigation ELUs and EDU. Oh, excuse me. Let me read my slide so I get it right. There should be one for the EDU and then one for the irrigation and ELUs. Okay, and that's how it is. And that's how I corrected it to be. All right, here's the next random question. Lee Sim says no. Raise your hand if you agree with Lee Sim. Okay, we got 2 agreeing. Anyone else agree with Lee Sim? Okay, we got 3. 3 in agreement with Lee. If you didn't agree with Lee, then you are, I'm not going to use the word wrong, but you weren't correct, okay? If you were in a water use group as a water holder and you want to declare a 0 on your water right within that water use group, you don't have to contact anyone else in that water use group. You can write a 0 and you can sign it and you can send it to our office, okay? Now here's a fun story. We received a declaration of beneficial use, was that 2 weeks ago, Chase? Where they wanted to declare a 0. So they had the form, it was 2 water rights in this beneficial use, in this water use group. They wrote a 0 on theirs. It was for 1 EDU, or what was it for? One EDU, okay? And they wrote a 1 next to the other water right. They signed it themselves. The other water right holder didn't sign it. Is this acceptable per the rules? It's very nitpicky, but it's not technically not acceptable, so that declaration was sent back. Okay, because the water right holder where the amount was declared to, even though it's clear that that's what's going to happen, they didn't sign, so we can't we can't process that declaration. And that's stuff that gives me an ulcer, I guess. I don't know if I have an ulcer or not, but it seems to be stuff people say. Okay, so here we are. We're coming down to the end of the basics. So this is Basics Plus. Okay, so you get to your filing your declaration, and you send it in. We sent it back because it didn't work, or you already knew that it wasn't going to work before you sent it in. Maybe for one of the reasons listed here, someone's dead, so they can't sign. Water right holders just don't want to sign because they don't want to declare whatever amount that you want them to declare on their water right within that group. Or I like that the rule says any other reason. It just needs to be documented, that the attempts that were made, and provide justification that that declaration could not be fulfilled for one of those reasons. But remember, when going through this process, document everything that you do, all the attempts that you make, so that you can provide justification in the end, okay? So we go to the next topic, which is apportionment, okay? So here we have Marty McFly after his parents finally kissed again and realized they were, meant to be, and we got Johnny Be Good playing, okay? So he's super fired up that there is this apportionment process that people can go through when a declaration isn't possible. Okay, so the apportionment process is a little bit different. You have to comply with Chapter 63G 4201, which I all know you guys know what that is. It's a commencement of an adjudicative proceeding. Okay, so but this isn't again, it's not a general adjudication. It's an informal adjudication of just this water use group. Okay, so the applicant shall provide these things. So when the word shall is there, that means you have to do it, otherwise it's not going to be accepted, okay? So you have to provide us all that information there. And then again, we acknowledge that it's not a general adjudication, but that it is just an informal adjudication of this water use group. Okay, so then once the apportionment is set in or sent in to us, we review the application. If it's incomplete and it doesn't meet the criteria, then we send it back. If it is complete, then we accept the form. Okay, so sometimes when we get these apportionment forms in, it's a lot like this scene in Back to the Future when Marty McFly is sitting there and Doc Brown had just gave him this nice speech about if the bolt of lightning strikes the clock tower and comes down this cord and you are driving the DeLorean and it hits 88 miles per hour, right at the same time that the hook hits this wire as the lightning comes across it, everything's going to be just fine. Okay, and so the apportionment process is kind of like that. If everything works out just right, it's going to be just fine. And more often than not, we can get the apportionment process to work out right. Okay, so now we're into Goonies pictures, okay? So this is the process. There's a lot of document review. So the application for apportionments come in, we've reviewed it, we said it's good. So the state engineer, now we have to do certain things. We have to notify all the parties that this apportionment applies to. That not only includes the water right owners of record, but it also includes people that may have an interest in one of the water rights within that water use group. So we notify all parties, we wait 30 days. We review all the information that we received within that 30-day period. And then based off of all that information that we received, so the apportionment, the new information, we then, we can hold a hearing if we want to at this time. Typically we don't at this point. Then we issue a preliminary apportionment and we send that back out to all the parties of this preliminary apportionment. Then we wait 30 days for all the parties to have time to contact us, to ask questions, okay? And at that point we can hold a hearing. We may hold a hearing, okay? So if we hold a hearing or if we don't hold a hearing, after all this is said and done, the state engineer, now we have to review all that new information, if there's any new information. And then with all that information, then we issue an order where we assign a beneficial use amount to each water right within that water use group. I said that right? There's a lot of jumbling going on, okay? And then we wait 20 days after that for request for reconsideration. And in that 20 days, then we update the database to match what was on the apportionment. Okay, so here I am going to read a little bit. So these are exceptions to the rule. So the bullets aren't real clear, but if you go to Rule 655-16-9, that's where the exceptions are. So it says a water use group created for public water suppliers that do not describe the extent of the beneficial uses, but rather group water rights within a use area will not require a declaration. Okay, so if you have municipal rights that are all used within the municipal service boundary, you don't have to, delineate or declare each individual right as long as they are municipal rights. Okay. All right, so in item number 2, it says at any time during a change application or proof process, if it becomes apparent through review, protest, or otherwise that a declaration is necessary, the state engineer may require a declaration to be completed consistent with the rule. Okay, and number 3 is a long one. It says a water right holder who wishes to declare that a water right contributes no beneficial use amount, but we're going back to the 0, where the holder is the sole owner of the non-contributing water right, may make the declaration by filing a declaration signed only by that water right holder. Okay, and then there's a whole bunch of more paragraphs or sentences there that I'm not going to read. Okay, so item number 4, it says if the beneficial use amount of a water right has been quantified by a court order or other legal instrument or equivalent effect, and which instrument is not part of the state engineer's documentary records, such instrument may be submitted by any person for consideration by the state engineer. Okay, so there's no need for a declaration in that case. If you come to us with court documents that we don't have of record, we can update beneficial use amounts that way. Okay, number 5, the state engineer may administratively cancel the assignment of a water right to a water use group if such action provides for more efficient or proper water right administration when the database is updated to cancel the assignment. A memo documenting the cancellation shall be placed on the file of each affected water right. Okay, and number 6, the state engineer may waive the filing of a declaration for a temporary change application when he believes sufficient water and beneficial use amounts are available for the purpose of the change. Okay, so those are all the exceptions that we have to the rule. All right, we're going to jump in now. We have some examples, okay, that we're going to work through. So these are actual declarations of beneficial use that were submitted to our office. And we're going to step through and see if we can work the issues out and come to a consensus, okay? Does anyone want to do the truffle shuffle while we're here? Anyone? No? Okay. All right, example number 1. Okay, if you have a device of some sort, then we're going to be on our website in just a minute looking at the scanned documents for water right 51-2098. So you can pull that up on your own device if you'd like. But here's the gist of what's going on. Okay, so it's in 2 groups, a supplemental with 1 water right for 46 ELUs, and in the second group it's supplemental with Lakeshore Irrigation Company for 0.25 acre. Okay, so let's go to the website. And that's not the one, this is the one. Okay. Okay, so we're going to go into scan documents. Okay, then we're going to sort by date. Okay, so you can see here's the declaration that came in. Okay, so we're not going to look at that quite yet. And then you can see that there was some correspondence from our division. Beneficial use and change application was returned. Okay, so obviously there was some issue with the declaration when it was first submitted. Okay, so what document would you like? Can everyone see that? Is that large? Is that better? What document would you like to look at so we can determine the beneficial use amounts of this water right? Where should we start? You want to start with the water user's claim? The underground claim, okay, sorry. The underground claim. Okay, here we go. Okay. Let's make that a little bigger. All right. No information, no information. Okay, so let's go to page 2. I should probably switch to quick view for this, but we're going to tough it out this way. Okay, so prior to 1900. All right, so here we're getting into the animals. We have 20 cattle, 6 horses, 100 chickens, 6 pigs. Number of persons supplied, 8. Irrigated, and that is a quarter. That says 1/4. Okay, so now we have where this water right started out at. Does anybody know off the top of their head how many ELUs that is? I know John Bream. 30? About 30? Okay. All right, do you want to look at anything else?
Water users claim.
Water users claim, okay.
Because it may have defined some of those uses.
Okay, so now there's no more EDU, right? There's just irrigation and stock watering. Okay, and we have 0.25 acres, and we have 40 cattle and 6 horses, and then we have in pen written next to it, supplemental with 512097. Okay, do you want to look at anything else? Do you think you have enough information to do our declaration?
Eric,
Yes, sir.
you may want to check to see what the status of that water users claim, if it's been published in a proposed determination or not.
Okay, proposed determination or decree. Rotate this, and this is how it was published in the PD.
If it hasn't been published, it might have a different status.
Right. So we'll come back here to WR print. Okay, so status is blank and the source information is proposed determination, so it's been published. Okay, so there's what it looks like as published, so it doesn't define any, what's 46 times 0.028, is that 1.29? That feels right. Chase, you got it? Okay. Oh, Jeff's doing it. I could use my watch, I guess.
Was it 46?
Yeah, 46.
Yeah, 1.288.
1.288. Oh. Don't let Jared know that we rounded to 1.29. Jared Manning, not Jared Hansen, that's over there. Anyway, okay, so we still can't really determine anything yet. Would you like to look at anything else before we define our declaration amounts? Jeff?
Better look at the underground water claim for the other
Okay.
2097.
So we're going to come over here. Oh, I'm giving the answers away now. 2097. Hopefully nobody read that as fast as. Okay, so we see the same status, source information. Going to the scan documents for this one. Okay, so we'll start with the underground water claim again. And I don't know why I clicked on page 1. That's just habit, guys. That's just habit, sorry. I know that the uses were on page 2. Okay, so here we see again, now we have 15 cattle and 4 horses for a total of 19 ELUs. That one was easy, I could do that one. And then a 1/4 acre of irrigation. Okay. And then there's a little note there. Okay. And let's go see, sometimes the water user claims are the same, sometimes they're not. So we'll look at that water user's claim. Okay, so we see incidental irrigation, stock watering. Okay, 0.25 acre of irrigation, and then, okay, so this one started out 31 and 4, but then they came back and said, hey, we noticed that these are supplemental, so they changed it to 40 and 6, and supplemental with 2098. Okay, so does anybody have any ideas now on how we can declare what goes into which group, or do you want to look at more documents? I can look at documents all day. It's what I do. Dana, what do you think? You want to throw out some numbers?
I'm not even paying attention.
Okay, so we got 2 groups. We got one group, 46 ELUs. So here's what do we know? What do we know about 2098 was roughly 30 ELUs from the underground claim, and we know that 2097 was 19 ELUs from the underground claim. So how can we break up 46? Do you want Jeff to help you? He has his hand up.
Jeff can always help.
Okay.
As long as the total is 46 and for 2097 it doesn't exceed 19 and for 2098 it doesn't exceed 30, then you should be okay.
That's exactly right. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now the other thing we have to work out now is the second water use group on 2098, which is the irrigation. Oh, you can see the answer right there. Anyway, so push come to shove, Lakeshore Irrigation Company was kind of added to that water users claim because when it was taken, it was determined that Lakeshore Irrigation Company may potentially be able to provide water to this 0.25 acre. So their water right numbers were added to this water use group, supplemental to 2098. And through the declaration process, they got Lakeshore Irrigation Company to declare a 0 in that group. So 0.25 was assigned to that water use group as the beneficial use amount. Okay, so the next example, I'm not going to make it big again because I'm going to have to leave to the other screen. I'm not leaving the room. Okay, so this one has 3 water use groups. Okay, and as you can see, that only a couple more slides. So here in Goonies, Mikey gives a big speech about this is our time down here. This is our time, and then he says it's all over when we write up Troy's bucket. So it's almost over, everyone. Okay, we're almost getting onto Troy's bucket. Okay, and so here are the 3 groups. The first group is 116 EOUs. The second group is 22.1 acres, supplemental with an irrigation company. And the third group is 9 acres, supplemental with 2 irrigation companies. Okay, so let's come over to the database. And sorry, this is just more of a... Okay, so let's start here. So we see proposed determination again. There was a diligence claim. Status is blank. Okay, and we see the owner. The owner's been cleaned up. Yeah, I can give that. So when this declaration first came in, it was owned by W. Cheryl James, and the other water right was owned by Cheryl W. James. So when they filed the declaration, and I can show you that declaration once we get through the first part here. When they filed the declaration, they had to also submit an affidavit saying that W. Cheryl James and Cheryl W. James is one and the same person with some other documentation. Okay, so what would you like to look at first? Should we skip over the first documents and go? Why can't I? Oh, because it's not dated. Should we go right to the PD page? Or somewhere else? Okay, yes, okay. This is one of those things as a parent helping my children with homework. I'm like, should we just start here maybe? Got to get this over with. I'm sorry, that came out sounding poorly, but I'm an engineer, so I have terrible manners and stuff. Anyway. Okay, so here's the PD. Okay, so we see the 3 groups, 1, 2, 3. Okay, and I can tell you right now that this first group, these additional water right numbers here are the, the Spanish Fork West, right, Kevin? Irrigation Company, and then I can tell you that that's always the Spanish Fork West again, and then Strawberry Water Users Association, okay? So let's focus on this first group for 22.1 acres. And then we see if we times 22.1 by 4, we get 88.4. So we're not getting any clues on how to distribute the beneficial use amounts, okay? One thing we're going to do is we're going to come here and we're going to click on this map view button. And it brings up the map, the point of diversion. It's going to zoom out just a second. There we go. And the place of use, okay? So I can tell you that the place of use for the 22.1 acres is over here, and the place of use for the 9 acres is over here. Okay, so that's some information that I think that we need. Would anybody like to look at other documents? I'm happy that John hasn't said he would just like to look at the memo to file about the declaration, but I appreciate that, John. Anybody like to look at any other underlying documents before we venture a guess? You want to look at what they submitted for their declaration? Okay, let's see. I got to get the right use group number here. Everyone look away for a second. 636. 636,844. Okay, so there's my signature. Oh, there's what they submitted. And this is also kind of cheating because this is after several iterations of their form that they submitted. So they wanted 4.6 acres assigned to this group for the 22.1. Okay, and we see so the Spanish Fork Irrigation Company, and then this was Cheryl W. James, and then Wendell Cheryl James didn't sign because they submitted information prior that they were the same person. Okay, and then there's Spanish Fork West Company. Okay, and then here's some correspondence that I sent back to them that gives a rundown on all the information. Okay, so we came to this determination based off of, I brought up the map. This one is a little convoluted. So I basically said, look, your well is here. So if you want to claim any irrigation, it has to be over here somewhere where the well is, because I doubt that a private individual has a ditch or a piping system that would take water over here. Okay, so on this group of 9 acres, they actually declared a 0. So that's the first group that we took that out of play. Okay. And then based off a review of their underlying documents, we were able to determine that they could claim roughly 4.6 based off of the flow of the historic water right. So they maximized this water right and declared a 4.6. Okay, so let's look at the ELU groups, or the ELU group, and then we're going to pull up this water right here. Okay, and we're going to come into the scan documents, sort by date. In my mind, yesterday, if I would have done this presentation yesterday, I would have crushed this whole thing because I won like 2 games of tip-in. I made dinner by myself. I crushed yesterday. So I apologize that this example isn't going as smoothly in my mind, or as smoothly as I wanted it to in my mind, okay? So we look at the claim here. Okay, good. Good. Okay, so we see lists 116 ELUs, supplemental with these 3 water rights. Okay, so basically, it was Carl James, who is the son of W. Cheryl James. I told him, I said, look, you have this group, you have 116, divide it up however you would like to divide it up. So he came back and he provided a declaration that said, I want 50 ELUs on 3682, I want 50 ELUs on 3683, and I want 100 ELUs on 3684. That's what he submitted to me. So I sent it back to him and said, you've got too many ELUs. Your limit is 116. So whatever number you give me, it can't be more than 116. So he said, okay, well, what's 116 divided by 3? And I said, it's this number. And he said, that's what I want. So that's what we gave him. Okay, and there wasn't anything on the file to say otherwise. Okay? All right, does anybody have any, I do have to pull up, yes, Scott. That is Scott, right? Yeah, sorry, I was.
Are you locked? General question, are you locked in stone when you submit a declaration? Can you modify it?
Yes, you can modify it. It can be modified. Unless, I mean, if some action has been taken on it, then I think we've now locked that in stone. But like in this case, he was just, was this a loaded question? You already.
A little bit.
Okay. Well,
No, I think that's, just to make it clear that you can, I mean, situations do change. Yes, if there's administrative action.
Right.
I mean, I would assume, yeah, it's pretty much locked in. But if it's one of these that you've got to do it for a reason, and sometimes family situations change when they're dividing properties,
right.
and you don't have any concrete, sometimes you need it. I think when this was initially established, there was some concern that you were locked into this, knowing that things could change. But you can change them if there's reason and
Yep.
the support is that. I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly.
that's correct.
Not really loaded, but.
Yeah, go through the same process. Okay? Any other questions before we turn time over to Jim? Excellent. That's the best, when there's no more questions. Okay, thank you for your time.